everyone. Nice to see. I see some people standing. If you will, please join us in the space. Thank you. Alrighty, it's lovely to see so many beautiful people here. Thank you for joining today. So we have a really lovely program today with some beautiful panelists, and we're here to talk about joy. So I would like to read something to you. Joy, that mystical feeling that we have each come to recognize in our own way. That warm sensation, like the safe embrace of a loved one that you're reunited with, or maybe it's the excitement before sinking into a warm bath at the end of a long day. And I'm pretty sure for certain, it's the anticipation for tasty food for a lot of you too. However, joy is sometimes elusive, hard to reach, or just cannot be ignited within us when the external noise grows louder and our inner whispers get harder and harder to hear. Challenges that aim to prevent us from accessing joy exist for all of us. And at the same time, the obstacles stacked against queer and Black, Indigenous people of color, BIPOC, are sinister and pervasive. Here, societal phobia directed against queer and BIPOCs is not only felt on the outside, but risks being learnt on the inside as well, teaching us, young and old, that it's easier to hate our authentic selves instead of embrace them. So while this event is about joy, I have to give also a trigger warning that this conversation touches on these unsafe spaces, because unfortunately, this is part of it as well. But individually and collectively, we all have something to gain from queer and BIPOC joy. So here, we will question what it could mean to claim our own and envelop us in this space. So, with us today is a group of talented panelists and performers to help us explore 3 layers of claiming joy: our personal relationship to joy, protecting joy in unsafe spaces, and also our collective joy. So today's program is a synthesis of panel discussion, but also 4 performances. So we'll also have a 30-minute break in between at 8:30, just so you know, and we'll return at 9. But firstly, to prepare us all for this journey, I'd first like to introduce Black Pearl. And Black Pearl is joining us from Berlin over Zoom. And Black Pearl is a multidisciplinary Afro-Latinx trans artist living in Berlin. She graduated from the Staatliche Hochschule für Musik and Darstellende Kunst Mannheim and has performed professionally in different art institutions and renowned professional dance companies in Germany. She's also a current member of the iconic, and I give iconic, House of Saint Laurent Europe, and her research work explores the use of the body as an artistic and political platform to subvert the invisibility of trans entities through their life stories. So Black Pearl aims, through movement, to deconstruct the colonial narrative of all classical forms, all through body experiences and bringing light to aspects related to the representation of dissident bodies in art. So, thank you, Black Pearl.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I would like to thank you to be here and thank you to share this moment with you all. It's a pleasure.
Then I'm going to leave it to you to warm us up for this journey.
Let's go. Let's join us to this movement section. So from now on, I would like you to, if you want to be sitting down, it's okay, or if you want to stand up, but I would like you to always keep moving. We don't stop moving. And I would like you to also breathe in through your nose and try to breathe out from your nose too. So breathe in, breathe out through your nose. And keep moving. The movement can be very small or just and circular. Try to always keep this fluidity into your body. So now I would like you to look to a part of your body that is visible and look at it, see it, see how it is, if you've got some marks, if you're not, but all from now on is no right, no wrong, just possibilities. And now I would like you to close your eyes, keep moving, don't stop moving. I would like you to close your eyes, and from down to up, I would like you to create awareness into your body. So how your foot touch the ground or inside your shoes, and generate movement. Breathe in, breathe out, keep moving. Now go up into your legs, knees, hips. How does it feel to lose it out? Create movement. Go up to your belly, to your chest, to your shoulders, to your elbows, to your arms, to your hands, to your fingers, to your neck. Don't forget to keep moving and breathing in and breathing out. Now be aware of your face, your lips, your chin, your cheeks, your nose, your forehead, your eyebrows, your eyes, your head, your ears. Keep moving, keep breathing, keep moving, keep breathing. Now imagine a place that brings you a good feeling, a place that is secret. Nobody can see you. You don't see nobody. Keep moving slowly, keep breathing. Imagine this place. This place can be in the past, a place that you have been already, or a place that you want to be. But imagine this place. How is the air in this place? How do you feel this place? How is the energy in this place? So keep breathing. Breathing through your nose, breathe out through your nose. One more time. Keep moving. And now I would like you to imagine in this place. And now you're gonna breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. But all the time that you breathe into your nose, you're gonna expand. And we're gonna do 3 times. So you're gonna expand when you breathe in, and you're gonna compress from your stomach, compress all the air out. So let's go. Breathe in, inflate, and breathe out. Compress. Keep moving. You can explore more. You can move more. Second time, and breathe in. Expand. Take all this energy. Breathe out and contract and put it out. 2 more times, and let's expand this movement. So keep in and out. Keep moving your arms, your head. Last time, and I would like you to bring your hands to your face right now. Close your eyes and keep breathing. Now imagine a word that brings you a good energy right now. Close your eyes, put your hands into your eyes, keep moving, keep breathing. Imagine these words, and now open your eyes when you're ready. If you're ready, open your eyes. Yes, that's all.
Thank you very much, Black Pearl.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you for your presence. Thank you for your movement. And thank you for keeping moving.
We appreciate you looking stunning with your braids.
I mean...
Please, she is a beautiful performer, so please seek her out. Black Pearl, where can they find more of you? Obviously, you can go to the website.
Instagram, balls.
The
I
ball.
mean, yeah, or stage. But yeah, Instagram is the platform that I always post my thing.
Amazing.
For now.
Lovely. Thank you so much for being here and for doing this with us to open us for this journey. Take care.
Thank you all. Enjoy.
Another round of applause. Thank you. Okay. So now we're going to get to the meat and potatoes. And we're going to start with our panel. But I can't do this panel alone, so I would first like to introduce Shishani. Please, round of applause. Wherever you feel comfortable. So Shishani is a singer-songwriter whose music transcends genres and cultures, and is loved for her soothing and powerful lyrics. During her career, Shishani has received multiple awards and nominations and has toured internationally, so we're very happy to have her today. Her roots are Namibian and Belgian, but she grew up mainly in the Netherlands. And through her work, these worlds have come together, along with a strong social consciousness that centralizes women and Indigenous knowledge. She is known for her work with Shishani and Namibian Tales, an acoustic quartet that delves into the musical heritage of Namibia, highlighting beauty and the importance of San culture in the Kalahari Desert. She is also the founder of Miss Catharsis, centralizing women of color through music, also the title of her new EP, which is out now, and you should all listen to it. So, Shishani. Next, I would really like to welcome Joy Mariama Smith, they, them. So just so you know, is an installation and movement artist, activist, educator, and architectural designer whose work is rooted in socially engaged art practice. They have a strong improvisational practice spanning over 20 years, and their work has been performed internationally, including If I Can't Dance Edition 6 event and the Duration Amsterdam show. Solo Festival in Philadelphia, Freedom of Movement in the Stedelijk Museum, and Ponderosa Movement and Discovery in Stottelsheim, Germany. They currently teach at the School of New Dance Development in Amsterdam, where they actively try to uphold inclusive spaces. So thank you for being here, Joy. Next, I would like to invite Sharona Latau, she, her, is the co-founder of the Black Trans Art and Joy Fund. Yes. The Black Trans Art and Joy Fund is a private initiative that centers community of care for Black trans people in the Netherlands and Belgium. The Black Trans Art and Joy Fund does this by organizing crowdfunding initiatives, as well as sharing and connecting networks and offering practical support to provide the community with space to create, to share their art, and above all, experience joy. And it's good to highlight that since their start in August 2020, so not long ago, they have redistributed approximately 19,000 euros directly to Black trans individuals via crowdfunding.
Wow.
Important work. Next, I would really like to introduce Nicole Romer, she, they. And Nicole is a freelance writer, public speaker, diversity and inclusion consultant, as well as an activist. They are on the board of Black Pride NL and a coordinator at Neighborhood Feminists, which is an intersectional feminist collective. So thank you for being here as well. Alrighty. So we're gonna start the panel, but first we have to question, why joy? Often queer BIPOCs are inundated by our sadness, be it our strife, colorism, racism, patriarchy, slavery movies. It never stops. But I see joy as a bridge to recognizing your authentic emotions, a way to cut through the external judgments and societal expectations to notice what makes you feel good, where do you feel pleasure. And with that, you can't kill that, and it cannot be extinguished, even in the face of violence directed by systems that seek to limit our bodies. And this is the start of the conversation, some of which will happen here in public, some of which may continue in other public spaces or in private. And we won't have the tools or the answers for everything today, but here and now, I believe just speaking about our joy gives it more place to flourish and allows it to fill the space and hopefully create new openings of joy. So, I would like to pose to the panel, and I'll start with you, Shishani, since you're right next to me.
All right.
What is your personal connection to joy?
I think joy is a feeling of freedom, to not have to think about anything you are feeling or doing or wanting, also, things that you allow yourself. So granting yourself whatever it is that you actually want in that specific moment, whether it's peace, whether it's going out and partying, whether it's, you know, being by yourself, but also freedom, a sense of freedom within myself, within my own body, within the space that I am, with the people that I am, that I don't have to think or negotiate my presence or make sure that I fit in, because I think I grew up in spaces where I was nonstop the other.
Right.
So then you always compromise yourself to fit in and be part of a group. So joy is just being whoever I am in this moment with whoever I am.
Right.
I think that's what I could answer right now.
Beautiful. Then could we go down the panel, Joy? Very fittingly.
Yeah, I feel really silly because that's my name. Like, so that's my personal connection, is that it's my name. And I think beyond that, I think it's also sort of a thing that's tangible, but doesn't need to be like quantified, like resisting this idea of putting it in a container. Like, I also feel like it can't be, that's against the nature of joy, like to try and contain it or to try and put it in order. So it's also linked to the things already named: authenticity, being oneself. But I also really feel that it's infinite, and it is also somehow impenetrable as well. So I like thinking about it like that it's as an individual, that's how I experience, but also collectively, that's how I experience, which is really nice.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Sharona?
All of that. And also the dance between self-care and community care. Joy for me is very connected to being supported, being seen, being nurtured. So yeah, both of them. For me, ballroom has been a space where I have found joy in a way that I was like, okay, so were the things that I experienced before, was that joy then, or what? Because to be me, loud, fat, black, and to be celebrated for all of that which is frowned upon in society, that is joy. So from a communal standpoint, and I think whenever, I'm with myself and the world is silent, and the world can be loud as well, by the way. Yeah, it's just really like, I think of, I don't know if you know this because it's very Dutch, I guess, but barba papa, which is like this, it's this shape shifting thing. So it's everything and nothing at the same time. Yeah, I guess. Wow. Didn't mean to get philosophical on your ass immediately, but
there's space for that too. There's space for that too.
Yeah.
Nicole?
I would add to that joy is ever changing. One of the things that I've kind of found myself unpacking and kind of learning in the past years is the duality in joy, the fact that as I have grown older and have experienced more sort of also negative things, and they've compounded, the joy that kind of stands across from that becomes bigger, and it becomes more kind of impactful and deep, in the sense that my joy is not just the joy in that moment, it's the joy of knowing that I am joyful. So it's like, it's a combination of those things. And I think an extension of that as well is, again, with age, my joy is also very much linked to the child self, and kind of realizing that some of my most joyful moments now come from letting go of this idea of who I'm supposed to be as this adult, and like what these rules are around me, and kind of realizing, look, well, maybe today my joy is, yesterday I saw these kids watching the like the grofvuil, like the big truck that comes to pick up the trash, and like that crane thing. These kids were like losing it over that crane. And I stood there and I was like, holy shit, that's so cool. And I just stood there next to these kids being like, wow, yeah, it's picking up the trash. That's awesome. And I was so joyful. And I realized like joy can be all these really big things, but it can also just be watching this train picking up trash and thinking, damn, that's really cool. And I'm happy now.
Beautiful. Does that resonate with some of the other panels? Like where
Absolutely. I think the inner child, you know, the one that has been compromised, unfortunately, because life, but then to just connect with that pure feeling of doing, you know, and just flowing, basically, and being verwonderd. How do you say that in English? Like surprised, amazed at
Wonder.
just the simple things like the trash or anything, you know, and just having that kind of amazed look at life every
Almost
day.
Like being able to step outside of yourself.
Exactly.
To be able to just enjoy that childlike wonder.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Never stop being amazed, I think. I think that's a big part of joy.
Nice.
And amazed with ourselves as well. Because like the trash crane is really cool, but also kind of realizing sometimes I'm really cool. And that's also something to be happy about.
For sure. For sure. For sure.
I think this is also a good moment to, if you would like to affirm something you hear, let's snap. As not to disturb, but I appreciate the interaction because they deserve it. So on that note, and it's also something that you touched on, Sharona, because you spoke of, you know, the community that you found in ballroom and how that's allowed you to kind of feel empowered with things that maybe other societal places would have you not feel. And so it's, when do you each recognize joy? And is it also something, do you feel it in your body? And if you'd like to share, where?
I sometimes say that happy hurts to me. Like whenever I'm really, really joyful and happy, I could burst out of my skin. Yeah. So it's really like, then it's really physical. But it's also the mentally, it's the absence of worry. It's a sense of flow almost, where I realized that, like last Friday we had a function and the community was together, and I realized that at no point during the evening I wondered what other people were thinking of me. Wow. And that's new to me, to feel that. And I was strutting down the runway in a bathing suit, like, you know, in high heels. And even looking at the pictures afterwards, there was this like silence and this, I'm actually sexy and I'm actually cool. And so the whole like accepting yourself as you are and not even being like a conscious practice to do that. That to me is how joy can feel.
Almost like an ease within your body.
Yeah,
where it's like
there's no effort. Yeah,
effortless.
Yeah,
beautiful. Does anyone else? Where does joy?
I think also that like the chest, like joy is also laughing so loud that your stomach hurts, you know, and in that sense, the pain that you said really like, it does hurt when you laugh that loud. But also just here, because I remember every time I'm kind of bracing myself for something, like it's the breath that I'm holding, and I'm kind of like the posture is to brace, right? Yeah. So when I'm not, then you can relax, and everything feels lighter. Also shoulders, chest, I would say.
Relax it out.
Exactly, exactly.
That's what I love about Black people laughing. Like, we have to touch each other, and we have to run and like
and fall and crawl
and slap our knees.
I was gonna say some shoulder smacking.
Yeah, yeah. I have like a whole like highlight on my Instagram of Black people laughing, and just to see. Yeah, it's a very physical thing for Black people in general to laugh. Yeah.
That's nice as well. Like, but it's interesting that you also say that you have this collection as well, just to be able to also see it, to visualize it. And I think very often, if you don't see those representations and are able to also be like, yeah, this is what this joy can look like, and that can also be with me as well.
Yeah,
that's really special.
It's a little medicine jar.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think that again, joy is ever changing, right? And so it really depends on the moment, where sometimes joy is just absolute stillness. For me personally, like, I can very much relate to this idea of being free of worry. I'm a worrier,
right?
And also by societal conditioning, you know, worrying about, as you said as well, like, what are people thinking of me? How many people are judging me? Are they judging me for this thing or that thing or the other thing or the other thing? And you go down that road, and it's exhausting, and your brain is kind of just on all the time. So joy can be just the absence of all of that, and just kind of like, just this moment of quiet. But at the same time, there's also the joy that's loud and big, and one of the things in that as well is that loudness being also linked to the silence. For a long time, for example, I was made to feel very ashamed about how loud my laugh is. And I remember for years trying to like make it quieter.
Oh, wow.
It did not work. And then finally realizing, like, oh my God, you're having this very loud, joyful moment, but the loudness in your head about that judgment is just completely destroying it. So it's that kind of push and pull between, I guess really allowing yourself to be in that moment and allowing yourself to just be me, to just be who you are. And that kind of opens the gateway to the joy, I feel like.
I think it's also really interesting the way you phrase that, in the notion of there are all of these outside forces that in that moment you feel really good and immediately you're cutting it off.
Yes.
That connection to the inner body, be it in the chest or in the mind when it's too busy and loud and needs to be quiet and down, but it gets stopped. And when you're able to feel that joy and allow it to envelop your body. So what I'm hearing from the different responses is there's really sort of like an emotional, mental, but also a physical reaction to how you're feeling joy and how you can recognize it.
Definitely. Also, like, if you're really joyful, if you really feel it, like that spark, you would notice it, and it would do something to you or to you or to you or to you. And I think it's also like the way it kind of moves, you know. So for me, for example, in music, I recognize it by, like, you hit that note and then the other person is like, and then and you're
like,
there.
Those chords be hitting.
And then it's just like, and it's happening, and then my face makes you look a certain way, and then I laugh louder, and then we're all there together. So it's very much also the moment I let it be, and I'm not like, you know, dampening it out. It moves, it travels, right? So it's also, I think it's that there's a lot of joy in also just seeing how it travels, that I'm not enjoying this moment by myself, but you're a part of it, and that makes it bigger.
I think that's a good segue, because you as a musician, I wonder, is it then your musical expressions a means of not only accessing joy, but sharing it with others?
For sure. I think the reason of making music is to connect for me, you know, like you're on that stage and you're trying to create a space and have an experience together, the people on stage, but of course everybody in the whole space. And it's that movement of wanting to connect with another that you're already kind of prone to be open to somebody else, to be looking at like, what is the energy here? How can we create something together? And across all the experiences I've had in any country where I did not speak the language, like the joy of not knowing that you don't understand the language, but that you do understand what I'm doing here, and you do understand the rhythm, like those have really been my most like happiest moments ever, because then you're just laughing and you want to say something and you're just like but you're there and it grows. So music definitely connects. It is physical, and it allows you, even if you're kind of by nature a little bit more quiet or timid or to yourself, it will do something to you. At least the foot is tapping, or the head is going like this, your neck is moving. So it's all about the movement, connecting and creating, like making it bigger together. So yeah that's what music has given me.
That's what it's given you.
Yeah.
And I wonder, to the other panelists, if anyone wants to chime in, are there particular practices, like in your case it's music, some other interpretation or form that has allowed you to, again, to access or make space for that own personal joy when you maybe it feels compromised? I guess it's also ballroom for you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, is where I can be as loud and, like I said, as loud and as black, and my joy isn't policed in any way. It's
maybe even cheered up, like supported.
Yeah, yeah. And also, if I want to be quiet and sit in the back for this function, then that's okay too. You know.
Right.
So yeah, and I also was thinking, I have a 5-year-old kid. And when you were talking about the kids looking at the trash, they help me really access joy on a daily basis. Also access a lot of other things. Because this morning it was 5:30. Just the wonder, the curiosity, the being able to provide them with the space that I so desperately needed for a long while. I can see how it feeds their safety, their curiosity, their joy, and there's an
exchange.
How do you say that? An exchange taking
Right.
place. Yeah. So that's really cool. Yeah.
And with you, Joy?
I definitely think it's through movement. And yeah, even if I weren't a mover, I think I would have the same answer. There's something that happens when, like, there's just, an unburdening that I experience, but also through sound. And I think there's something, like, I also was thinking as people were talking about, like, stillness or structure, and that, because also being an architect where we've been naming joy as something that moves, but I also have experienced, like, things like, can there be joy in places that are like, what does that mean? I was just thinking about, but for me, it is through movement, and I wonder, like, on what level, like, especially if you get into, like, sound, vibration, and that sort of work, and energy and stuff, where like, is anything really still anyway? So thinking about how that's transferred, that it has the possibility to be transferred, and when I am the most in my body, this is, like, how it starts. Like, it's very rare that I can be, like, feeling the worth, and if I like have a movement, even if I name that, like, I feel like shit, that I don't want to do anything, and I move around, and I'm really also inhabiting the place of feeling shitty, and I still move, it's, like, such a blessing, because I will immediately I'll be like, oh my God, and I'll surprise myself, and there'll be, like, this effervescence, and then I'll be like, oh, why? How do I feel? What happened? Like, I feel better. Like, and it's sort of a no-brainer, but it's nice to also remember that. Like,
to be able to record that in those moments where you are just having a shitty day and like things are just, but that you can find your way back to yourself. And I think that's also what I'm saying earlier when it was like, it can't be extinguished if you know where to find it, but it's also being able to take that first step to reignite it as well. And I think actually on that, I'm curious, you kind of described the joy in your body as you moved as a sort of energy. And could you maybe just describe how you would visualize that for us?
Yes. Well, I remembered something, and this is sort of a cultural reference. So if anyone, for the listeners or the people, I was born in the 70s in the United States, and there's this candy called Pop Rocks.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that. Like, I feel like that is like, that's it. If you haven't eaten them, you can eat them and experience that. But that's sort of the feeling, or like some sort of like magical sparkly thing.
Yeah.
That
Almost like glitter.
yeah, definitely like glitter. But then I thought that like the glitter doesn't do anything. So Pop Rocks, I mean, it does. I mean, it does. But
I was gonna say some people in the audience like, what do you mean glitter doesn't do anything?
I get you.
But there's also this like tiny burst. Yeah, it feels like if you could eat fireworks in a safe and like now I'm like,
I was gonna say we're past New Year's, so let's not get too creative there.
Yeah.
But okay, on this note, because it's really interesting to see how each of you experience your own joy, I'm curious about if there were caregivers or role models that showed you to recognize moments of joy. Who were those people? And it doesn't have to be like, you're sitting in the room, they're like, are you happy now? No, but it could be subtle things that they did, a picture they hung on the wall, a film that they shared with you, a song they played for you, which allowed you to be like, I feel good in this moment. And so who were those people?
My mom.
Yeah?
Yeah. Like talking about kind of what, like music, things like that. I got to thinking about one of my surefire ways to kind of pick myself up, make myself feel good is to put on some music and to dance.
Yes.
And it's always like merengue, bachata, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And so I'll do it when I'm like cleaning the house or cooking, and then it takes me hours to actually do that task because I keep getting distracted and like doing my thing. But
you're breaking it down with the mop.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, yeah. But that like definitely comes from, and I remember as a child I didn't get it and I found it very embarrassing where like she would just dance and like the woman did not care who was watching her. It didn't matter whether we were at home or whether we were out doing something. She'd hear a song, she'd be like, oh my God, I love this song. She'd start dancing and I'd be like, oh, stop it. You're embarrassing me. But what I realize now, literally as we're sitting here talking about it, I'm like, oh my God, it had an impact. Because I over time have come to the point of, I see now where she was coming from. And I can stand at like a stoplight waiting for the light to change to cross the street. And if I'm listening to something real nice, I'll be dancing at like that stoplight. And that comes from her. Wow. But I didn't really realize that until, well, about a minute and a half ago. So yeah.
Already coming full circle.
Yeah. I think for me, it's my parents have always been very physical. So when you were talking about your youth, I remember that, or your childhood, I remember that my dad was laying on the couch with his like legs, and I was sitting behind his legs and eating my appelmoes, and just the feeling that I had like touching his body, touching mine. I'm thinking about the moments that we were leaving in a Black people way, which is usually takes an hour to leave a place. but then I would fall asleep against my mother's chest, and I could hear her voice through her chest. So a very physical way.
It's a tactile connection.
Yeah. And it's what I'm passing on to my kid as well. Luckily, my kid is also very huggy. And if they were not, then. But yeah, very physical.
It's beautiful though, because it's also like, it's not an exchange of words.
No.
It's simply that closeness and almost like, again, that movement or energy transference from one person to the other. And it's not something you encapsulate in words, but it's the feeling. So, Joy?
Yeah, I mean, immediately, it's like all of the ancestors, like so many of the ancestors, because I feel like I am deeply influenced by, you know, the people that raised me, the community, both given and chosen family. But there's also my ancestors that are still with me that are present in various ways that I feel like also give me access or sort of portals to experiencing joy. And I feel like that that access that is available to me has been opened up by anyone, even the ones that I don't know before me, and I think that's really important. At the same time, very similar, like dancing, singing, like eating food, just like being around at a very young age, like Black and brown people fucking living their best life, like and absorbing that like as a child, and that being okay, like this expression of like, yeah, I'm gonna dance and do chores, and that's fine, or I'm gonna sing at the stoplight, and that's fine. So not being ashamed to express that, and also being exposed at a really early age to collective moments of joy, so that, because I also feel like for some people that's really scary, like seeing, or especially if you're Black or brown, like, oh, they're gathering, oh no, they're all laughing, oh no, like how that's threatening. I'm just kind of like,
it's like they're laughing and smiling. Oh shit, it's like, going down. Okay.
So not being afraid of that, but I also was thinking deeply about my mother and how, for her generation, she made the decision to, like, she has sort of, not literally two personalities, but two personas. One was Bertha, who was like all business all the time, being like a Black single parent, having a child in her 40s, like so many things, being in education against her, that her other persona, Mickey, was like her like kicking back, laughing, singing, smoking weed, drinking wine, like doing all those things. And it'd be interesting as a child to see who called her which name, because then I would immediately know, like, of course I am exposed to both because like I'm the child, but like knowing it's like, oh, okay. Like if you're talking to Bertha, like you are on the business end of things, but if you know Mickey, it's like, okay, we can get down.
Right.
And
Bertha's like, okay, I'm gonna clean my room before I talk to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like how that carries through for me is not wanting to do that. Like I don't want to separate those. I want people to understand that I have the capacity to be all business, but also bring joy into those business spaces. That's really important in terms of how I hold space. So, but also to understand why that was the case,
right,
and to honor that for her, that I'm here. It doesn't need to be the case for me, so
right.
I can bring it in. Like I can be in a business meeting and having a joyful moment,
right,
if I want.
Wow. Actually, before we continue, I like this notion of the separation of self. Is that something that resonates with the other panel members, this idea that you almost needed to segment part of yourselves, and it's only if you were, let's say, not the Bertha, you could actually be in that moment and enjoy that space to be able to dance on the street without being concerned about anyone who sees you. And then when you occupy that other space, you have to be this other version. Like for myself, I can say like I had a version which was like, I called the distant protector, which was more serious and very worry conscious. So I shortened that to dip because it was always a dip in the mood. And then the other side was sunshine, because sunshine could shine and could be joyful and wasn't so concerned about these different spaces. But again, as Joy puts, to put that together, to say that we have the capacity for all of it, that's still I can speak for myself, a challenge for me. So I'm curious if you've been able to bring those pieces together, or is it different versions?
I'm discovering that, I guess, still. When we made a documentary, Black Trans Joy. Check it out on YouTube.
Yay.
And we had the premiere, and we had a panel talk. And it was the first time that I was on stage with an all-black panel. And there was this absence of worrying, do I sound intelligent enough? I almost felt an absence of a predatorial energy that I usually felt when I was on stage with white people, and so it was very, I think that's where the two parts came together, because I was a maker on that stage. I was talking about how we made it, but I was also just me.
Right.
So there was a reintegration, and I was like a little bit shook afterwards. Like, it was so silent in me, and I just talked, and I think I'm having the same experience right now here, where I just talk, and I didn't experience that before. The same thing as having an interview a couple of weeks ago for a job with two black women, and I was like, I cried during the interview. I said, I've never experienced this before, and even if this doesn't amount to anything, this is very meaningful to me to have to integrate both or multiple parts of me and just be me in this space. So yeah.
I mean, I would echo that it's a work in progress. It's funny you mentioned sunshine, Omar, because I have always, people who know me have always referred to me as like sunshine in like human form, which is true in some ways, in that I'm always very smiley, happy, joyful. But it was interesting. It was an interesting process to unpack that. First of all, to realize that I kind of at a certain point internalized that and felt it was my duty to be sunshine. But sometimes you're not, and that's okay, you know? And so that was a process. But also kind of feeling like that, that kind of characteristic was weaponized at a certain point where, as a woman of, first of all, I was a lawyer previously, and as a woman of color coming into those spaces, it's already messy. And so kind of trying to get that respect, like realizing that you need to earn that respect. It's not given. And then on top of that, being this like very sunshiny kind of person, nobody took that seriously. And so I found myself kind of going down that road of being like, oh, there has to be the business persona, there has to be like business me, and then there can be sunshine happy me. But who does that serve? Nobody. Definitely not me. And so that's still a work in progress. But the first thing I did was quit law. Because like this is not working for me. But it's nice to see now that going into workspaces, going into places like that, I definitely feel much more capable to be both of those people at the same time, and to go into spaces where people know I'm going to laugh really loud, and if we're listening to music, I'll be typing and singing the song because that's who I am. But that doesn't mean there should be a lack of respect, and that still means, you know, I'm good at my job and I'm killing it, and we can work together. So yeah, but I would say it's definitely a process. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's hard, but because there's like this compromising of the self, especially in places where, like, you know, got to pay these bills. So, but then it's like, it comes at the point of you like, I have to, well, I can't, my joy is being compromised in a space that I have to be in. Not many of us are fortunate not to have to work. We have to be out there. But then the fact that it's a compromise of your authentic self is also a challenge that many of us are going to have to overcome. And I think that's where I'm going to park the conversation for now, because it leads us very nicely into our next part after the break. But before that, I would really like to introduce Dizzy, a performer. So please welcome Dizzy, everyone.
Woo!
Yes. Yes. And Dizzy Gita is a Dutch-based professional artist with roots from Sri Lanka. Dizzy is a composer, multi-instrumentalist, and DJ with a special interest in spiritual healing through music and plant medicine. Currently, Dizzy is composing music for dance theatre shows such as Lilith by Amenti Collective and Suwokono by Sarah Jola. Next to creating and performing, Dizzy also teaches music primarily with rhythm instruments, and that's to groups and also private lessons, if anyone is thinking about that. And so also, you can make sure to follow them on Instagram or Facebook at Dizzy, D-I-Z-Z-I, Gita, G-E-E-T-H-A. So take it away. Thank you.
So I would like to take you on a sound journey with me. So if you feel comfortable and safe enough, close your eyes and let it all flow.
Okay, so that brings us really lovely into our break. So we're going to have a 30-minute intermission, and then we'll be back at 9. So it would be lovely if you join us again to continue the conversation, as we're going to go into protecting joy in the face of unsafe spaces, and then also communal joy. And we also have some additional performances, so we'd like to see you here. Thank you. Alrighty, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back. Nice to see many familiar faces still with us. So lovely. We're going to continue with the next part of the programming, and we'll continue with the panel. But before we do that, I would like to introduce another performer for us who is going to lead us, and that is Cheval. So please welcome Cheval, everyone. Yeah. Now, Cheval, the ambassador for peace and unity, a young world's child, singer and songwriter. Inspired by her Turkish roots, Cheval wants to connect people through melodic and holistic guidance. Cheval has the strong belief that in order to change your environment and to make a better world, you need to change yourself first. As written in the Holy Book of the Quran, chapter 13, verse 11, it states, "Indeed, Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change what is inside themselves." And this is what moved Cheval to perform and promote her artistic way of life on several stages and at places both in her home country of the Netherlands as well as across international borders. So thank you for being with us, Cheval.
No? Okay. Well, salam. Hello, everybody. I want to start by saying, did you have time for yourselves today? Who did? Okay, and I'm just gonna choose some people, and please, share. How did you feel? How was it for you? So, can I see the fingers again? Woohoo! Okay, let's start with you.
I just did some meditation in the morning, stretching in the morning, went to the gym somewhere in the afternoon. Especially the second session really gave me some peace of mind, calming down agitation. That was really happy I did that. Been doing that for a while now, and it's really nice to do that.
Okay. Who else wants to share? Yes?
I was in the train. I worked in Utrecht. So in the train back, I read a book, which was very nice.
What book was it?
It's a feminist book. It's called Mutus, and it's written by a Dutch book.
Okay. Yeah, reading books is definitely a way to just disappear for a while, right? Who else would like to share? Yes, please.
So I work from home, and today I had a moment that there was nothing to do, so I grabbed my sketchbook and I was drawing.
Yeah. Woohoo! Yes. Is that a way to connect to your inner child, maybe?
Yes, I've always been.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Anyone else? This is the last one, I promise. Yes?
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah, it's really nice, right? The sun. I hope it's gonna get better. Today I felt like, is this are we going back to the cold? But hopefully, I don't know if anyone knows, is it gonna get warmer next week? I hope so. In the meantime, let's create some space here. Flow with the energy. Are you in love with your heart? Camille, are you there? Thank you. Can you put the sound a little bit higher? Thank you. Like an alchemist, I'm in a journey to freedom. I've become better in observing this, what we call life. That voice inside of you, that little being, she was simply hurt, and she had to act tough. Living in the now has given her the space to dive, deep dive, because at the end of the day, it's about the journey and not the destination. So this is an invitation to all of you who started seeing the 11-11s and the 12-12s or the 4-4s or the 8-8s. Yes, my dear, you are surrounded by your guardian angels. Your grandmother carried you, and you will carry the next generations. So, you are already a champion. Remember that first mission of survival, when the seed had to meet the cell? You, as a spirit consciousness, carry the light. So take it as it is. Flow with the creative energy. Be honest to your heart. Open up. Dance a little bit more. Smile. Cry if you need to. I mean, what do I have to say? Today is a proof that a whole community is opening her arms to you, right? Right? Thank you. So don't be afraid to move in this vibrating pattern of space. Kalbini açsana sen burada olmayı seçtin ana. Eğer sen bunu hissettiğinde gözyaşlarını sal. Sal gitsin, karışsın sularla. 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 Dankjewel.
Thank you so much, Cheval. I think it's beautiful to hear you sing and to also guide us, because even though we're here to talk about joy, again, you know, there is some weight, there's heaviness also behind that. And while I was listening, I was thinking this is like a lullaby to just soothe us into the conversation, because it's not always easy. It's not always able to find that space to smile or to be like Nicole's mom dancing on the bus stop. I mean, even if we can strive for that as well.
Yeah.
But this kind of nicely brings us into the next part, which is really protecting joy. And that's really in relation to unsafe spaces. It's a hard part. It's not the fun part, but it's real, you know? It's part of it. And I think, Nicole, you already touched on this a little bit in terms of your choice to leave law, that work, and the fact that there was almost like a compromise that you had to make between being joyful and authentic in the space or having to leave to be able to follow that and dim it if you are choosing to stay. So I think I'll start with you, if you don't mind. And I'd say, how did you recognize what was ultimately an unsafe space?
I think that's sometimes easier for me to answer than at other times. I think that particular unsafe space was this interesting physical manifestation of a whole lifetime of me not embracing who I actually was. And what happens in a situation like that is that it's so deep and it's so big and it's so insidious.
Right.
When you kind of spend, and I think a lot of people unfortunately can relate to that, when you spend a lifetime pushing away sides of yourself and creating this version of yourself that you think you were supposed to be, you unknowingly like catapult yourself into unsafe spaces. And you don't even realize that the space is unsafe because you don't even know who you are. So that particular unsafe space took me a very long time to recognize. And I only recognized it because I kind of went down this path of really breaking down who I thought I was and unlearning a lot of very bad behaviors in the process.
Right.
I think that nowadays I'm quicker to recognize unsafe spaces, and that's also because I know much more clearly who I am. And so what happens now is that it's just a gut feeling. My gut feeling is very like active and like on top of it, and I can come into a space and be like, nope, going the other way. And but I wouldn't be there now if I hadn't gone through, honestly, a really long time of fucking it up, to be honest.
It's almost like, what is it, that baby meme where it like walks into the room, it's like, ooh. It's very much that vibe.
Yeah.
Sharona?
Yeah, I think what you said about the insidious part of it, numbing oneself to a point where you can navigate working life, school life. In my case, also, what I now know is as masking, because I think, on the one hand, trying to approach whiteness, on the other hand, trying to approach being neurotypical. I was like, I had all these, how do you call those things that bugs have? Like
Antennas.
antennas out. And they were reacting from what was given to me instead of just feeling inward. So I was like the shell of myself for a long while. And anytime I have that emptied out feeling where I feel like this happens and not this.
Right.
And with this, I don't mean like being open to people, of course,
Right.
but the whole like,
You're externally focused.
yeah.
Yeah.
When then I know that I'm in a unsafe space. Very particularly, I've been swimming in the personal development waters for a long while, which is a very patriarchal, informed world. Again, neurotypical, very capitalistic as well. Sometimes posing as different, as being spiritual or something else. And there have been many spaces I was in there where I was just, I think, in an indirect way, bullied into being someone that fits that space instead of asking, inviting out my authentic me or whatever, my real me, my me. So those were the spaces that I was thinking of that I had to really detox from for a good while, and sometimes I still do. Yeah.
It's an interesting thought. So it's almost like for you, you started to recognize those spaces because you noticed that you couldn't actually allow that openness. In contrast with how you described ballroom, in those communities, you're like, I can be loud, I can take up space. But as soon as you feel like you're more inwards and the antennas are out, that's almost an indication like this is maybe not for me.
It's when I am really trying to feel out the context to know who I am. That's when I know I'm not in a safe space.
Right. You almost lose sight of yourself.
Yeah.
Like shape-shifting.
Yeah.
Like falling back, and for me at least, it's like falling back into that pattern of like shape-shifting myself to the context, which is not where I want to be.
Not at all. Before I go on to Joy, I would just like to address the audience, and not to put you all on the spot, but as you can see, like this is vulnerable moments that we're bringing out, and our panel is, you know, bringing that to you. And so it would be lovely. The snaps of encouragement, they really do help. So if you hear something that resonates for you, please give them that encouragement. So, thank you. So Joy.
I was thinking while I was listening before about, darkness and the role of darkness in this conversation, like physical darkness and being in the dark, and thinking about whatever happened to me that I'm not afraid of the dark, or whatever context that I grew up in, the dark is really liberating and protective for me. Or also growing up, I think as an only child of a single parent in a city where there's violence all the time and witnessing violence on another level, not being aware. So I didn't know that I was learning these things, how I was cared for, all the caregivers in my life, teaching me in a way to this idea of discernment, of where before I could articulate verbally, I was already being trained because I was alone a lot as a child. I was this term called a latchkey kid, so I, from a very young age, had to go home by myself, open the house, make myself a snack. So the antenna, the spidey senses, understanding my sort of internal landscape or how I protect myself. I think I was taught how to protect myself without highlighting the fear, so I wouldn't be paranoid, but that I could know how to cultivate skills of being aware of my surroundings, or understand certain signals from myself, but also from like my community, and understand who was not part of my community. So I think recognizing, like, I was being trained before I was aware, which I'm super grateful for, because that really helps me understand how I want to govern spaces that I'm upholding.
Yeah.
So, you know, something as simple as, does everybody know how to leave? Like, does everybody know where the exits are? Is something that I was being taught as a child so that I could transmit myself from school to home really safely. Or knowing how to, when I'm making eye contact and when I'm not making eye contact. Being socialized as female, that's also a thing. Being Black, before I understood racism, understanding I can go here and I can't go here, or when I can go in these places, was really simplified in a way that I didn't feel unease when I was learning those things. And then as I aged, I was like, oh, that was some training for this discernment, which I think we all have, whether it's code switching or masking, or like, I think there's so many skills that we develop because, at least in my experience, I had to learn from the jump, from like before day one. Like, you know, am I coming into, like, do I feel, you know, am I recognized? Do I feel valid? Am I validated? Do I see myself reflected back? What does that mean? And those are some ingredients. And I'm still training on, like, how do I, okay, now I'm an adult. I can intellectualize that, but I can also come from my body first. And that I don't suppress signals from my body, like the gut feeling, the intuition, the conscience, the ancestor, like all of those things. I'm like, oh, right, like that, you're helping me. So to continue to cultivate those skills.
It's quite powerful as well that you, like we with Nicole and Sharona, you touched on this intuition, this gut feeling that you started to become more conscious of. And what you're also drawing from, Joy, is this idea that it's really also the people around you, your community members, that were already instilling these tools in you, but you weren't aware because you were too young. But it's also in some ways quite tragic because you later come to understand the weight and the significance of why they were doing that. And the fact that there's a sort of ignorance or bliss that you're not allowed to dwell in for very long before these kinds of systems rear their ugly heads and let you know, don't get it twisted.
Basically, listening to everything that everybody said was very confronting to me because I come from a mixed family, so Black mom, white dad, and basically I didn't have that, you know, like we moved from Namibia here, so I didn't have the family, you know, the aunties that are laughing loud, I didn't have that. So everything that I was taught is the same as what George just said, is like, it was quite clear, like, you're different, and because you're, you know, a person of color, because you're a woman, because you're queer, blah, 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 you'll have to be, you have to work harder, and people won't accept you. That's like, my mom was already letting me know the intersectionality of my being from a young age, and being raised in white spaces where I was the only person of color. I was nonstop code switching, just like that was my default. And being inside these spaces with even family that say things that are racist, and then being, you know, like this is my family. I didn't have the choice to leave the law firm. This is my reality. This is my life. This is my surrounding. So that's something it's something that I'm dealing with now, you know, now in my life, that I really, like, I started going to therapy because I realized how much that did to me, like, because I couldn't just be. You can be in a space and then people are talking about Black people, like, and I'm just like, hello, I'm here. And it's cute that you think that I maybe pass or whatever, but that doesn't take away
the context,
who I am, really, fully. So it even took me having to cut ties, you know, which is a very painful thing when it's your family. Because I started talking about stuff, talking about Zwarte Piet, talking about how it feels to me. And then having these really awkward and really painful conversations that don't get you to the place that you hoped to be with very close people, which makes it really painful, because otherwise I could just be like, oh, these are my spaces, this is my community,
Right.
and and then I'll just step away.
Yeah.
But I really had to learn to navigate being who I was in a white space, being special, not always in a negative way, but just like extra attention. Oh, where are you from? And then nonstop explaining yourself, but not being able to leave that space.
No, always forced to justify why you're there.
Exactly.
As opposed to just being, I'm here.
Exactly. And the interesting thing, and that's what I loved about what Joy said about like the ancestors being with you. The weird thing is, like, I've always felt so guided that I've been in weird situations and spaces, but it really felt like I wasn't there alone, which was also weird for me, because I didn't grow up. Like, my mom really wanted me to be European so I would survive in this system. So she never basically brought that her spirituality verbally, but it's something that is just in me. So just having these antennas and feeling things so strongly, and then later by going back to Namibia, by connecting literally just with the space, with the earth, with the energy, with people, and even though I might be very European in my ways, you just recognize something in your being. I recognize, like, oh, wow, so this is what it is. This is guidance. This is being connected. This is, my instinct basically letting me survive in these spaces, and also getting power from it to a sense that I could step up to my own family in Europe and be like, this is what I deal with, this is what I accept, and this is what I absolutely don't accept. And if I'm not going to be respected, I'm stepping away. So that's been, it's a process. Thank you.
No, but
I think a lot of people.
I was about to say.
Yep, I think you can relate.
Yeah, because I think the way that you so eloquently put it is you were able to, in some ways, find that guidance, and be it spiritual, ancestral. And
to listen to it. It was there.
That's true.
And I wasn't told what it was. But I learned how to listen to it because I was alone. Most of the time. So then you're pushed inward. And you need to listen to what's going on.
I'm curious then, like, what would your thoughts be to audience members or people listening in who, again, like, they have to straddle these worlds? Maybe what is supposed to be their community, their place of belonging, doesn't reflect that or doesn't embrace all those parts of you. Like you said, like, you did have European parts of your family that they didn't want to acknowledge that there was more to you, and that needed positive affirmation and uplift as opposed to shame.
Well, shame, and also just the notion of I see no color is beautiful, but the reality is so different. So even if it's from a loving space, like, I don't see your color, I love you, it takes away my experience when I'm in the train and people move, and like, you can't, trying to explain that is such a drag, basically. So what I think, what I would tell myself, my let's say my 25-year-old self, I'm 35 now, it would be thank you, is to not try so hard to persuade people that are not willing to listen to you the moment you approach them. It's okay to keep having a conversation, but, like, really, if it hurts you, then go step to your friends, your chosen family, a space that is safe for you, because I've lost so much energy. It has cost me so much pain. In the end, the result is not what I hoped to be. Like, I cut ties later on when I could have saved myself from that. So I am about, dialogue, and it takes time sometimes to get to a point of understanding and growing, and everybody has their process. But I think it's just important to listen to yourself in that process. Like, I'm going to tell you, it took me so much to talk about certain issues. And if at that moment I'm met with such resistance, don't keep hurting yourself, right? Find safe space, and maybe from another space with more support, or even over time when people have learned and done their research, you can have that conversation again. So I'm not about, like, if it's hard, step away directly, but in some cases it really costs you too much of your insides. So
So then I'm also hearing that part of also then protecting your joy is being able to also step away from those situations.
Yeah.
Obviously, be it a workspace, family, it's easier said than done. But pushing against resistance, trying to float upstream, costs you more.
Yeah, I mean, this is what we're doing every single day, right? This is our reality as, you know, people of color, queer people, whatever. It's a daily reality.
Yeah.
So it's not something that you can just step away from.
Right.
Anyway. But still, I think the level of energy, like you should learn how to recognize, like, what gives me energy, what feeds me, what vitalizes me, who feeds me, you know, across any board. It has nothing to do with color or whatever. Like, really, anybody can give you energy, but then to navigate towards these spaces where people do understand and do want to talk. I have friends that worked harder on this whole Zwarte Piet issue than some family members, you know, and then it's great. We can have this conversation and I can feel loved and seen and appreciated. But yeah, I think it's the recognizing, okay, how far am I willing to go and to push this?
On that topic, I'm curious from each of you, if you're willing to share, when you reflect on how you responded to unsafe spaces in the past versus how you do now, do you notice any differences, contrasts to your approach?
Patience.
Yeah, patience. I used to operate out of anger. Now I operate from a place of patience, but with kind of the kanttekening, the
side
notes or like reminder to also act out of self-preservation.
Yeah, when I said like, patience, I meant lack of patience. Like for me, it's like
no,
I have sometimes patience,
like
but
a
also
balance, like a knowing when to cut the bullshit.
Exactly.
So like, I mean, when you said like the Zwarte Piet and family, but also queerness and family, like there are conversations where I'm just like, I cannot explain this to you one more time, you know, and I cannot explain to whether you're my mother, my father, my whoever, I cannot explain one more time why this thing that you say is hurtful to me and to my community. I will patiently explain one time, maybe two times, and then it's done.
Yeah.
And then it's, as you said, it's like, and now I don't tolerate it anymore. Go figure your shit out. But it's a process. It's hard.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's hard.
You gotta put me first, Lucius. Gotta put me first. That's what it's about for me as well. Like, who are you centering?
Yeah.
You know, and that has been a big like switch for me. Like, who am I centering? Who am I fighting against? Who am I fighting for? That has been such a game changer for me.
Yeah.
So sometimes when I'm centering myself, I need to express my anger about you not getting me, you not seeing color, you not, you calling me fat in the middle of a family function, because, you know, and sometimes when I center myself, I don't speak out. So I choose to take care of me in a different way.
Right.
So also that is very, very depending on what the answer is on that day and that moment on how is it to center me right now in this conversation, or to center the one you are, who's not in the room, who you are trying to. How do you say that? Not represent, but
like honor.
Or about integrity. Like if you're not in the room, I'm still gonna say the things that I would say if you were in the room. So centering.
Yeah.
yeah.
Enjoy.
All of the things. Yes, all the things. What did I want to say? The difference. Being younger versus now is leaving.
I mean, you said you knew where the exits were.
Like for real, like leaving, whether it's a space, an event, a conversation, very +1 to like the bullshit. I have aged out, and I look forward to continuing to age out of tolerating bullshit. Like, I love my elders that are just like, man, love that. And I'm like, I can't wait until I like actually give 0 fucks. Like maybe I give like 2 fucks now. But I think that's really important to name where when I was younger, I'm like, oh, I'm in an unsafe space and I need to, like, resilience and perseverance and, you know, endurance. I'm doing all those things. And I'm like, oh, no, now, like, I'm actually going to leave. Like, it's fine. So much about, like, I'm actually centering myself in this moment and I can leave. I don't need to justify why I'm leaving for anyone. I'm doing my thing, or, you know, being unbothered. I think it's also thinking about spaces and conversations. Like, yes, I'm also learning how to leave respectfully. Yeah. So sometimes.
Not with the water in the face or anything like that.
I mean, 'cause sometimes not. Really. It really depends.
It caught you on a bad day.
But yeah, I think understanding, I mean, there's so much like, you know, okay, context and society and power and hierarchies and dynamics and codes and all this.
So much you need to be aware of it all the time before you can even act as you feel.
Exactly. And then like knowing when I really don't need to be doing that and leaving. And I think that's really an invitation to like notice when you need to leave and what is keeping you in a situation, especially if it's unsafe.
Or even not going to it at all.
Yeah.
That's my shit. Not coming.
Yes, no thank you. Also
no RSVP.
Yeah.
What I find challenging though is when your safe space is compromised.
Please speak on it.
Yes, when you don't want to leave because it was a space that you created and now someone is coming in.
Can you think of an example?
Yeah, like of course being, you know, in ballroom.
Oh yeah.
I guess a lot of us have seen the upheaval of attention for ballroom when Pose came out. And, you know, there were classes everywhere. And at the balls, people come in without being educated and being entitled, actually, you know, to step into a space like they step into a theater, you know, to watch people perform, not knowing that ballroom is that deep.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So that has been a challenge for me because I side eye and sometimes more the white people that sit in the front row along the runway and not giving any energy, just sitting there watching.
It's like if you're not waving your hands at the front,
give me something.
Go to the back.
But
you know?
especially like you know, so and it's sometimes even difficult in that space because of all the rules and the codes and, and the fragility and to say, hey, you need to sit your ass in the back and wait until the room is filled to know where you're sitting, and not to say that you're less than, but know who the space is for.
Right.
And but that is difficult sometimes, and we're again being creative. We're organizing a ball in May, and we decided to hog like 2/3 of the tickets for the community, and just 1/3 of the tickets is for general sale. So we know who's coming in. So we need to look at our spaces and
how to protect
see who's
them.
how to protect them. So, but that is what we need to resort to in order to honor our space. And I'm okay with doing that, but it shouldn't be needed. Like you need to know your place when you're stepping into this space.
Wow. I think what I'm also picking up from everyone, and this may be triggering to some of you in the audience, is that protecting and claiming joy is also about cultivating boundaries.
Yes.
No, it's a sensitive topic for some of you, myself included, not putting myself above you. So going on from that, what do you feel like are the nourishing and care practices that you have started to rely on to be able to uphold those boundaries. Because it's one thing to be like, okay, I'm going to set this boundary with this person, be it a family member, and then the next time they do it, the boundary doesn't really hold up. And that can be a challenge. So have you been able to find certain practices that allow you to hold that space for yourself? I mean, we heard from Joy, they leave. They leave, they're out of there. So, you know?
I think it's, I mean, that's also, like you would say, a work in progress, because it depends on that moment. Maybe I don't feel the energy today to have that conversation with you, saying, hey, this is the line, don't cross it. Then it's like, okay, then I just leave.
Right.
But it definitely has to do with knowing that I'm not doing anything wrong, because that's the thing. I'm so used to compromising myself. It was my default state. That it's really hard for me, and now I'm talking about being in predominantly white spaces, to just set these borders. So it's something that I have to reprogram and train and really push myself to do. And in like the places that I go to are generally, you know, like I don't have this problem. But I think it's just the constant reminding yourself, like by doing this, I'm not only giving myself a chance to protect myself, I'm giving the other person a chance to be aware of what they're doing and how it affects another person. So every time I don't speak, because I've learned not to speak or keep it to myself, when I do speak, I'm giving myself a chance, but I'm giving you a chance as well. And when you're aware of what's happening, if you're aware of that you're transgressing somebody's border, and if you care, because some people don't care, but if you care, you will think the next time, they'll be like, oh, now that I've heard it in this thing, I might not just go and sit in the front at the ballroom, because you've heard it, because it has been said, right? So I think that's something that I've learned, to really, to try to communicate, even though it's hard.
Right.
But then you allow another person to grow with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nicole, I want to come to you because you're on the board of Black Pride NL, and obviously they've been involved in creating spaces for Black celebration, BIPOC joy, and also protest. And so I wanted you to speak about the importance of creating those safe spaces, because I think it's all well and good to be able to be supported by a community, but the reality is we're all on different healing journeys, and you may not be able to locate those spaces, as, you know, sometimes the ones that would be the most obvious actually are the most damaging. So could you speak a bit more to that?
I mean, I think I'd want to start actually with my intro to Black Pride, which was I was a volunteer at the protest in 2020. And when I went to the volunteer training, I actually cried because it suddenly dawned on me that I hadn't allowed myself to access that space. I moved to the Netherlands when I was 18 from Curacao, and a lot of shit went down. And, you know, that experience of like sitting in the train and someone like hides their bag. And I didn't realize in all those years of living here that one of the things that could have helped me was to seek out this community, these people like me. I was so busy surviving that I didn't ever think of finding a space where I could thrive. And so I showed up at this volunteer training and was just overwhelmed with this realization of, oh, that space exists and like it's right here and I'm in it. Holy shit. So that was also a big motivator in why I, when there was a call for people to join the team, that's why I was like, yes, if they'll have me, I will be there. I will dedicate myself. And those are the conversations that we keep having is finding that balance between pride as a protest, but pride also as a celebration of joy. You know, how how often can we reopen our wounds and our traumas and, you know, display them for the world to see in this kind of anxious cry, see me, you know, care for me. And what we're really trying to, so in 2020, the protest was very much, it had a somber tone. It had a serious tone because shit was real. We needed people to get up and show up and listen. But what we kind of wanted to do after that, and last year was beautiful, was recognize that when we come together, we do create that safe space for us to also, to not just talk about the trauma, but to also focus on the joy.
Yeah.
And so that kind of set the tone for the whole past year, where we have had events, COVID permitting. COVID has been a nightmare, relentless. But when we were able to, we've had these events that have really been focused on how can we create safe spaces for that joy, but how can we also create safe spaces for healing? Where our joy goes hand in hand with the healing. And you and I talked about this yesterday on the phone a bit, that our healing, our joy is a form of healing, but our joy also requires healing. So it's this kind of circular process. And that's what we're really trying to do at Black Pride, is like create that space and also look at the people around us and see how many of us are doing great work like y'all. So yeah. I don't know if that answers the question,
Absolutely.
but sort of.
No, but it brings me to something I'd like to ask Joy, which is that, you know, your art explores the interplay between the body and the physical environment. And you brought that so beautifully into facilitating Color Block, which is by and for BIPOC people, and allows a space for experimentation, performance, rest, also part of it.
Yeah.
And so I would love if you could also share how that also relates to creating those communal spaces for joy.
Sure. It's also definitely like the question before about like what are nourishing and care practices that help me to uphold boundaries.
Right.
One is creating spaces like that that sometimes are permeable and sometimes are a fortress. So and realizing that that's okay to do, like that is also very nourishing to me. But I think on the communal tip, with anything that I do or creating spaces, I really start with what do I need?
Yeah.
Like really, what does this human body need? And because that's really like a truth for me. And then if I stay in that space, it turns out that sometimes people need the same thing. Especially if I'm in community, and then it's like, okay. And then it also builds. So understanding like, oh yeah, we need space to rest. We also need space to fuck. We need spaces to chill. We need spaces to eat. We like, how do we do that? It's like, recognizing that you have needs, that they're valid, and some needs you need to get into with other people, and some needs you need to be in solitude, and that it's dynamic, and we can build those together. So I think for me, a lot of the facilitating I do is like, okay, here's this resource, and y'all are invited, and then I really take a step back and let the things emerge that need to emerge. It's also sometimes shit's really heavy, and those spaces are we need to cry and mourn and grieve together, or we need to hit stuff, or that I'm not dictating what the space. I'm not delegating or dictating what the space needs. I'm really creating a container, and that people can understand this is a container that we are investing in and agreeing to be in and agreeing to be ourselves in, and that can look super different. depending on what's going on, but really being like, it's okay, and reminding people, especially when you get into unraveling traumas that are present, like, yeah, there's joy and there's also grief. Like, we're complex beings, and that's a beautiful thing, and I don't want to police that. So it's like, part of that and creating a container is really allowing and inviting all the things in that need to be there.
Yeah.
And I really try to do that, not just a color block, but other things and stuff as well as a practice. Like, it's part of my life. It's part of my pedagogy. It's part of my home. It's part of my relationships. So hitting the refresh button on how to do that. I mean, we've all been saying, like, it's process. Yes, it's like I'm doing it right now. I'm living. Like, it's part of it.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think I will lead us into our last question. And this is on the topic of how and who gets to celebrate BIPOC and queer joy. And this is a question on, do you feel that BIPOC celebrations and causes should be open to allies? And I'd like to start with you, Sharona, because the Black Trans Art Joy Fund team is based in the Netherlands and is a combination of Black trans and Black white cis people all working for the same cause to better primarily the lives of the Black trans community. So I was wondering if you could also speak about the role of allyship and how that relates to queer BIPOC celebration.
Yeah, I think it was yesterday that I was talking to one of my team members, James, and we were talking about we're doing screenings for Black Trans Joy, so we can have, like, together with community, can look at the feature film that we made and talk about it like we do here. And we were invited in Brussels, I think, for Black Pride type of celebration. Yeah. And James was like, yeah, do you want to come? And I was like, I think I need to step back because, you know, that's I think the cis people or the people who don't have trans experience in our team are always very aware of that. That's how I also, like, combine the team. And James was like, well, actually, I think it would be very good to have you there, just to have that, without, of course, centering myself, but to have that view present. Yeah. So, and that's what I really appreciate about my team as well. We have, we are very clear about norms and values, you know, and the people that I've started the fund with are Naima Janse, who is a trans woman, a Black trans woman, and Xiomara Virdo, who is a white cis queer woman. Both of them come from ballroom as well. I know, especially with Xiomara, you know, not that she gets all the cookies or something, but I know that she can decenter herself if needed. She has the right priorities. So, and at any point she's open to feedback and it's safe, and, you know, we can talk about the tough things. So to have, like, a mixture of people together also makes for, okay, no, you go rest, I'll do this work, because, you know, this is a space where I hold privilege over you, or where I can maybe do this easier and have different skills. So the combination for me, I think my view has changed on that, where I was primarily first like, oh, it's got to be absolutely, like, I need to step back as fast as I can. Or, no, it's actually really nice to have the combination, as long as everyone is clear who is centered in the space.
Okay, that's the key.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to switch things up before I lead us into our last performer. And I just want to do a very quick rapid fire. Because, you know, we've touched on both joyful things, some heavier things, and I kind of want us to leave, again, with the sentiment of, you know, we're joyful in the space, we're here together. And so, rapid fire, Nicole, I'm looking at you, I'm sorry, you're the first. Just something, it can be anything, don't overthink it. Something that never fails to make you smile. Go.
Merengue.
Okay. Sharona.
Luna, my kid.
Yeah? Beautiful. Joy?
Popcorn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Taking naps.
Taking naps.
Yes.
Yeah. A siesta. Lovely.
And you? And you?
Oh, for me. Baths. Always baths. So, I would like to thank everyone, but before you all go off into your evenings, I would like to invite Shishani, who has agreed to sing for us. And we're excited to close out tonight.
I'd like to ask you, could I show that 1 minute video?
Please.
And I'll tell you why. So at the end of this month, I'm doing my EP release concerts with my kick-ass band. And that's the video that I want to show you, because also in music, I've been trying to center women of color, queer people in the music industry. It's such an underrepresented space. And I've seen like the direct impact of just being on the stage and seeing girls seeing like the bass player rock out. And she's like, oh my God, I always want to play the bass. But I never knew it was for me.
Yeah.
So if the video works, I'd love to show it.
Oh, yes. Is it getting hot in here? Is it just me?
Yeah.
When I wake up in the morning time, I know that it's alright. And it's you. I know that I should try. I know that I should try. I know that I should try.
Come on, Red Blazer.
So come see the concert.
Yeah.
Is it on? Yes. So I wanted to end with a song that I wrote 10 years ago now. And I keep singing it because we're still dealing with the same things. And on the one hand, you know, you want to leave on a happy note. On the other hand, it's so important to keep feeling and being reminded, like, why we keep on going on and why we need to just stay powerful in that sense. So this one is called Minority. I'm just checking if the guitar is... You can hear it?
Yeah.
You got rules telling me what to do, but is there anybody checking up on you? I am no fool, I do what I've got to do. Many have died for a freedom of mind, for the freedom of truth.
Hey.
Could you be guilty for being a little bit different from the rest? Come on, come on, come on now, people. Put yourself to the test. Every minority has a priority. We want to be equally free. Love me or hate me, discriminate me, but you can't change the way I feel. Who is the one to judge? Telling me who to love, telling me how to live, telling me what life is. Oh, how you're mistreating me. I said, oh, how you're mistreating me. And oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. This ain't the way. Oh, no. Oh, no, 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 no. What you say is that I'm not supposed to be walking this earth, that I don't deserve to live a free life. I know I've so much to give to you. I feel no shame despite your blame, 'cause my love is real. Could you be guilty for being a little bit different from the rest? Oh, come on, come come on now, people. Put yourself to the test. Every minority has a priority. We wanna be equally free. Love me, hate me, discriminate me, but you can't change the way I feel. Who is the one to judge? Telling me who to love, telling me how to live, telling me what life is. Oh, now you're mistreating me. I said, double, you're mistreating me. And oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no, 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 no. This ain't the way. Oh, 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 no, 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 no. We need a black sheep to distract us from reality. Point your finger at me. I bet that makes it easy. We need to realize where the true problem lies. It ain't who you are, but the size of your mind. Can you see with your heart and the past preconceptions? Can you see my soul past the labeling section? This is who I am. Gonna stand up proud. Won't let no one bring me down. Oh, won't let no one bring me down.
Hey.
Wow. Shoshani, everyone. All right. Beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I realize we're a little bit over time, but I would be remiss if I didn't also thank every member of the panel, Shoshani, Nicole, Sharona, Joy. Please a round of applause. And as well, I would like to thank my very charming collaborator, Sorab, in the back. And also Camille, who's also tirelessly working. As well as Max de Ploeg and Amal Abbas, who also were helping put this together and support. And also all of you, the audience, for bringing a joyful space here today. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alrighty, then that was the program. I hope you learned something today, get the thoughts, the juices flowing, brought a smile to your face, and yeah, please close out your day with doing something that makes you smile. So, thank you.